Yeah. Okay, cool. Cool. Um, so what's next on the agenda? Let me pull up my notes. Okay. So I don't know if we talked about color grading at all. Um, and I wanna we touched on that a little bit last class about just like color, but I want to talk a little bit more about color, and the importance of color in film and why certain films use certain colors and what those colors have on the audience. So, and then I'll jump into CapCut and then show you how to, work with color as well. But let me first play this, show something. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so let me bring this up. All right, share my screen now. So there's a lot of so before I even jump into color and like what that even is, so there's this thing called color theory basically, and in films, um, every film has a color palette. Every film has a certain look, certain color. So like this movie here, this is Mad Max Fury Road. And so this is not a natural color. Like if you look outside, nothing really looks this visual. This is all artificial. Somebody got in this software and color graded it to make it seem surreal or make it seem more cinematic. And that's what color grading is. It's changing the color of footage to make it more cinematic, make it more visual appealing, depending on the overall feel you want the audience to get. So, like for example, this movie here, Mad Max, right? This is shot in the desert. It's very rocky, very sandy, very dusty. So it would make sense that they would have this orange and blue kind of look, right? Orange and brown representing the sand, and this blue in the sky. And we're going to talk more and more about this, but a lot of films use complementary colors in their shot. So, for example, this blue and orange, if you look at a color wheel, blue and orange are complementary colors. So let me just show you something. Color wheel. So, okay, so complementary colors. So I don't know how much you're familiar with art theory or just art and color in general, but uh, there's a color wheel, and every color falls on the color wheel. But there are certain colors that are complementary from each other. There are opposites. So, for example, blue and orange are complementary colors. They're opposites of each other on the color wheel. So they're complementary, meaning uh, if you put blue and orange together, well, I'll backtrack, but basically these are complementary. So blue and orange are complementary, green and red are complementary, purple and yellow are complementary. So now that you see your colors and what's complementary, you can use that to your advantage because our eyes are drawn to complementary colors together. So if you're watching a movie, a lot of the times they're going to have complementary colors. So orange and blue, yellow, purple, red, and green. So if we go back to this tab right here, this Mad Max shot, they use blue and orange. So this is the complementary color in this film. So blue and orange. So the sky is blue, the sand is orange, and that's appealing to you subconsciously. You don't even know that, but for some reason, uh, like your eye, I don't know the science behind it, but those complementary colors when they're put together in the same shot, it's visually appealing. It feels nice. It feels cinematic. And I'm gonna show you some more examples later on. But if you ever watch a movie, next time you watch a movie, pay attention to the colors. A lot of the time they will be complementary. So in this movie, uh, I'll give you another example. What movie? Oh, I'll do Joker. I know Joker uses complementary colors a lot. Uh, they even use orange and blue. You can kind of see the orange here and then the blue back there. They use orange and blue a lot. Even this shot, orange and blue. Uh, right here, orange and blue, or like green tint blue, kind of in the same uh degree. But a lot of movies do that. Let me show you another one. Um, okay, so okay, I really want to say that I got some good stuff. Okay, so I want to I want to save this. Okay, but basically, that's the point I was getting at is that a lot of films use complementary colors here, red and green. So that's a color grading technique that a lot of color graders use to make their movies visually appealing. So I'm gonna show you this. Okay, hold on. Okay. So I'll start here. So there are kind of there are three types of kind of color looks you can have in a movie. The first one is complementary colors, right? So we already talked about, I mean, monochromatic. I'm sorry. We talked about complementary, but this is monochromatic. So monochromatic is if the film all looks kind of one color, is mono, meaning all one or singular. So in this scene here, this is monochromatic because it fits that black and white. It's kind of one shade. Same here. It's green. It's different shades of green, right? There's no really reds or blue. It's all green, but just different shades. And then Wes Anderson movies. So like, yeah, he uses a lot of monochromatic colors. So I'll show you right here. And I forgot what movie this was. I think the Grand Budapest Hotel. But you see how here this is monochromatic too. There's different shades of the same color. So it's all the same color, it's just different shades. And that's a color grading technique. That's a different style of color grading. Um, and this movie, I think, is Dragon Crouching Hidden Tiger Hidden Dragon Crouching Tiger. I believe this movie, and they use monochromatic colors, so all blue, different shades of green, different shades of orange. Right here, the movie Ozark, even in Twilight, right? Oops, sorry, I didn't even show this. I gotta remember. Let me share my screen all the way, so I won't have to keep doing this. Um, I'll do my entire screen. Okay. All right, so you should be able to see this now. All right. So I was just talking about monochromatic. Um, so monochromatic is a color palette of a singular color. So basically different shades of the same colors. Here, I was saying how this one was black and white. Um, right here, this matrix scene is different shades of green. There's no reds, there's no blues, there's no yellows. It's all the same color, just different shades. So that's monochromatic. Um, And so another example of monochromatic, I was showing like Wes Anderson movies, how he uses monochromatic colors a lot. Right here in the Grand Budapest Hotel, you have different shades of like pink almost. So it all follows one color, just different shades. And there's no right or wrong. It just depends on the style and the overall look that you want to have on your movie. And so, um, yeah, I was showing Ozark here. This has this green kind of palette. It's all green and kind of sick. Um, and I'm gonna show you Twilight, right? If you've ever seen the Twilight movies. Um, hold on. So right here, they have this very sick. I can't even describe this color. It's just green, really kind of. It's almost like a fairy tale, but like earthy at the same time. So I don't know. A lot of people thought it was weird, but I liked it. I think it fit well with the overall, meaning of the movie or the theme of the movie. The theme was love and vampires and myth and war and beauty and youth. Well, not really youth, but romance. So I think that fit well with that. Um, and so if you ever rewatch the Twilight movies, you'll notice how green and kind of sickly it looks. But that's on purpose. The director chose to do that to give it that, vampire pale romance feel. Uh,
Yeah.
so I really like the color grading of this movie a lot. But let me okay. So that was monochromatic. So I'd rather play this video first to explain it, and then I'll sum it up. But I think they do a really good job of telling us how it is. So let me play this really quick. Okay, so I'm gonna have to share my sound. Okay, so stop sharing, share screen, share tab, share.
Would
All right. Let me know if you cannot hear this.
you be able to sleep in a room with bright red? Might be hard, right? I'm on. No.
Okay, so you can hear it. Cool. All right, so let me replay it from the beginning.
Would you be able to sleep in a room with bright red? Might be hard, right? I'm on. No. You don't know what it's like in there. Colors elicit emotion and have a psychological effect on people. Unless you're shooting in black and white, in which case definitely review our video on tone. This is the video for you. Because today, we're going to show you how colors can be used to create mood. But you can go beyond placing a blue tint over an entire sequence. You can determine specifically what type of blue you want. There are three factors in determining color. They are hue, which is the color itself, saturation, the intensity of the color, and brightness, how light or dark the color is. With just hue, saturation, and brightness, HSB for short, you can create a complex color scheme rather simply, and go from being just another director to being a true visual artist. First up, hue. Some movies choose an affinity of hue, utilizing a monochromatic color scheme. Those are just fancy ways of saying that a movie is mostly one color, or neighboring colors on a color wheel, also known as analogous colors. The Matrix is a classic example of a movie that mostly uses one color. That color? Green. Why? Well, the movie takes place inside of a digital matrix, and we associate green with code. Plus, the green in the matrix has a certain sickly quality to it, reflecting the overall state of affairs in that world.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Next up is the S in HSB, saturation. This movie used a post-production process called bleach bypass, which has a deeply desaturating effect. The color is drained out of these images. It gives the world of the movie a cold, raw, gritty sort of look. It also becomes reminiscent of the faded photographs, the black and white newsreels of the period itself. It takes us back in time. The final of the three is brightness. Earlier in this series, we covered brightness in terms of a film's overall tone, but brightness can be used to affect individual colors as well. Sometimes a movie elects to use entirely bright colors, particularly movies from the Technicolor era. Back then, bright, vivid colors were a reason to see the movies alone. On the other hand, during darker scenes like this, you could almost forget that this movie was shot in color. Now let's see what it's like when one movie does both.
When the destiny of a great fortune is at stake, men's greed spreads like a poison in the bloodstream.
It's using all darker colors. Contrast that with this scene, where all the colors are bright. In both instances, every element you see was chosen for its darker color or lighter color to create a contrast within the film. So by utilizing hue, saturation, and brightness, you can precisely identify the right colors to create certain feelings in your audience. Bright images often seem lively and exciting. Darker images often seem dramatic, and on it goes. But rules were made to be broken.
I don't make the rules. Okay, I'll make it as easy for you as I can.
You get to decide what the colors mean. It's your movie, it's your world, and so make it your color palette. How do you make a violent red, the color of blood, feel like something else? In Her, Spike Jonze uses red to connote love. He does it by associating the color with the lead, Theodore, as he searches for love and ultimately finds it in his operating system.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh,
Black is for bad guys like Darth Vader, right? Well, sure, until it's for Batman.
I'm Batman.
You get to make your own rules. Look at how Wes Anderson uses saturated colors to make otherwise mundane scenes about a family pop almost like a comic book, while actual comic book films ground their high-concept plots in gritty, realistic tones. With the wealth of options post-production now provides, it's easier than ever to control the color palette. Of course, color grading can be an expensive, lengthy process, and it rarely can make up for a project that lacked a thoughtful color design strategy in pre-production. Want to dive deeper? Check the link to grab our free film color theory.
yeah. So, um, yeah, I just wanted to I like the point that they mentioned that there's no rules. It's whatever you want. So like they say here, if you're editing a cinematic movie, you know, there are certain themes, certain colors represent. So in movies, for example, when you see red, that typically represents a couple things. Red could represent romance, right? Like love. Red could, like with hearts and rose petals. So red can represent love or romance, but red can also represent danger and violence and death, right? Blood, like the body, heart. So it's like depending on how you use it, it can give different effects. Green is typically used if you're dealing with nature or trees and plants and healing and earth. Typically movies that deal with that, they use a lot of green. In the Matrix, how if it's having to do with computers or electronics or coding, they typically use green as well. So you see it could be something like nature, but it also be something like computers, which are two total opposites, but they still represent green. So that's what I'm saying. There's no like right or wrong way to use a color. It's just making it, make sense to the audience of why that certain color was used. And I also like how they mentioned the Batman moment where they said how where is it? Oh, right here. How they said black can represent evil like Darth Vader, but black can also represent, like heroes and courage like Batman. So it depends. It's up to you. So that's the beauty of color. It's so subjective. It's so but every color has a certain feeling to it. So in this movie, if they use a completely different color, you would get a completely different feeling. Like let's say they use green instead of just like orange, red. What if they use like green and blue? That would give it a totally different feeling, a whole different emotion. But the director chose his colors intentionally, for whatever reason. So that that matters. And and yeah, this is somebody's whole job. Like to literally make a movie look pretty. They call them color graders or colorists, you may hear them. So they're like the last step, right? So once the video editor, sometimes the video editor and the colorist are the same person, but once the video editor finishes editing the final movie, they send it off to the color grader, and then the color grader puts the appropriate color on it after. So, like they said, it's lengthy, but it's really important. But it doesn't like fix the movie. It just makes the movie prettier. You know what I mean? So like, I've seen movies that had amazing color grading, but the story was bad, and you can't even follow the movie, so you can't even appreciate the color grading because you can even finish the movie. Or there are movies that don't have that much visual color at all, but they're still really good. So it just you shouldn't rely all the way on color grade. That should be like the cherry on top. You got everything together. But it definitely changes your movie. It makes your movie definitely look prettier, and more appealing and visually striking. And so yeah. Um,
I noticed with like color grading, like if they wanted to talk about like a time period, like let's say the 70s has a specific color grading that they use.
Yep, exactly. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. So, for example, like there's a lot of movies that come out now that were based, it's supposed to be based like in the 19 like 60s or 70s. And
Mhm.
so that's important, right? That's so important, right? Having a certain look to make it feel like you're in that time period.
Mhm.
Um, what's a movie like that? A Black, not Black Klansman. It's uh, um,
Classmate?
not Black Klansman. It's the one with Keith Stanfield. Let me find it.
Oh,
Uh,
pop? No, not pop.
Ju- Judas and the Messiah Contract. I don't know if you've seen that.
I
But it's
think
about like
that's
the
the
Black
one.
Panthers with Daniel Kaluuya. Um, they got a lot of awards, but they have a certain look to that gives it vintage in the film, which gives it like an old timey look.
Mhm.
They do that. And then there's a few other movies that do that. But yeah, that's what you want. Like if you wanna, it's about making it as real, like making it as cinematic and realistic as possible, especially if you're doing a time in movies that's important too. I'm glad you mentioned that because uh making movies from the past and the current times, you have to be very careful because you have to remember everything that that time period did. So that means the way that the actors talk, that means the way that they dress, that means the cars on the street, like not having any newer cars. Like imagine seeing a movie that was supposed to be based in the 1970s and you see a Tesla in a shot. That throws the whole movie off. It's like, wait, that's not supposed to be there. So having, the right cars, the right actors, I mean, not the right actors, the right cars, the right like the words that they use, the way that they dress, just creating that environment. Even the way that their hair is, like all of this stuff was, stylistically chosen to give it that 1970s, 80s look. And so, the further you go back, if you make a movie based off the 40s and, and the 30s and, however far back you want to go, you have to be even more and more important because it's so different than our current times. You can't, it's like in the 1960s, like you can't have a phone in the shot. There was cell phones didn't exist then, so you gotta like times and know because that one mistake like that can really throw off the whole movie. It really can. So, uh, but yeah, color grading plays a part in that too, just making it look like that time. Um, but so yes, really good point there. Um, so that's monochromatic, which is basically different shades of the same color. So like this, like here, all green, just different shades. So monochromatic. And then we talked about complementary. And so this is complementary now. So complementary colors, the complementary color palette is one of the most popular and frequent used color schemes employed by directors and production designers. Uh, okay, what's the complementary? So complementary colors use one main color and that's color's complement. Colors found on opposite sides of the color wheel are complements of each other. The main color is considered dominant, while the complement color serves as an accent. Complement color schemes exist not only in film but in all artistic disciplines. Exactly. So here are the complementary colors: yellow, purple, red and green, orange and blue. So these are typically the colors that you see together in films that use complementary colors. So complementary colors are extremely popular in film and other visual arts because they are pleasing to the eye. Complementary colors are called such because they complement each other when appearing side by side. So that makes sense. So again, here's that color wheel. So blue and orange, red and green, purple and yellow, all complement each other. And so here's an example. I love this poster because it definitely defines it. If you look at all of these posters, they have complementary colors: blue and orange, blue and orange, blue and orange, blue and orange, right? Uh, All these are the blue and orange. There's different shades of blue and orange, but blue and orange nonetheless. Um, um, and that's on purpose. That's appealing. Um, so that teal and orange, right? So color has a massive impact on the way in which viewers perceive a given image. The impact can be aesthetic in nature, but can also be a subconscious psychological effect as well. So that's what I was saying. When you watch these movies, you may not even know why it's appealing to you. You just like looking at it. But the directors know. They know certain colors attract the eye more. Even I said, even beyond film, look at the world around you. When you go to McDonald's, um, certain colors attract you, that red and yellow. Those colors attract you. Um, and is another example. Like there's certain marketing things that companies and brands use to draw you in. Um, they use certain colors, certain designs, certain things to pull you in. It's a marketing tool, but it's so subconscious. But once learn about it, you see that makes sense, and it is appealing. It does make it a good film, So it makes sense. Um, Let me see if this is the other one that I wanted to. I might say.
But how is it possible that the methods of the silent?
Yeah, that's not what I want to show. Okay. So here's some examples in movies. So this movie, Amelia, they use that complementary red and green. Use it all the time in this movie, and it looks pretty. Like it's a visually striking movie, and it works. It gives it that old France, because I think this is like a French movie. It gives it like that old French, look. Um, I just love it. Um, so Alfred Hitchcock movie, Vertigo, they use that red and green to work well, and it works. Um, right here, Eyes Wide Shut, that orange and blue, that's all done on purpose, and it looks nice. Um, so yeah, so those are some examples of uh, color schemes, complementary color schemes in film. And I'm gonna show you some more examples. This is a really good video that I'm gonna show after this. And then we'll go into CapCut to actually show you how to color stuff. But so that's complementary. So far, monochromatic, complementary, and then the last one I want to talk about is triadic. Um, actually, okay, so another type of color grading is called analogous. If I'm pronouncing that right. Colors. So these are colors that basically like have similar colors on the wheel, so they share a certain uh, uh, they share the same kind of palette. So here, like they share the same side on the color wheel. So yellow and blue, they all have that kind of look. Here, this like yellow and green, even though those are different colors, they kind of share the same part of the color wheel. So those colors overlap, making it look like they're the same right here. So like this blue and purple, that's it's similar to monochromatic, but and the difference is that they're not really different shades. They're more like different colors, but just next to each other. So it's similar. It's similar. So that's why I kind of skip it because it's kind of similar to monochromatic. But yeah. Um, where's the other one? Uh, Sorry. Okay. I wanted to show this too. So this is the psychology of the color in film. So this is how I was saying certain colors give off different themes. So typically when you watch a movie, red usually represents love or passion or violence or danger or anger or power, right? So like that's what I'm saying. Red can mean a bunch of different things. It just depends on how you use it. But typically in movies, they're used for one of these, themes or emotions. Pink, if you see pink in movies, so like, was this Mean Girls, Harry Potter, Wolf of Wall Street. So it represents beauty, empathy, playful, femininity, sweetness, innocence. So anytime you see these colors, they typically represent these themes here. If you see pink, now if we get into orange, that's typically warmth, friendliness, exotic, youth. So what movie was this with Wes Anderson? Now I can't think of it, but a lot of Wes Anderson films, he uses orange a lot to represent youth and warmth. So yellow, right? If we see yellow movies, it could represent madness, sickness, insecurity, naive, abusive. So yellow a lot of the time represents this in movies. And here we go, green, right? So green can mean nature. It can mean corruption. It can mean darkness, mystery. No, purple is mystery, but green is nature and maturity. So green, it can mean nature, but it can also mean corruption, depending on how you use it, right? So here it's used as represent like this, very, uh, sunny green, representing nature, but here represents darkness and chaos. So they're opposites, but they work. Then we get into blue, right? Calmness, melancholy, isolation, cold. So when we see blue, that's typically what we associate it with. Purple, right? This is a less commonly used one, right? Fantasy, ethereal, exorcism, illusory, mystical, ominous. So that's what purple typically represents. Um, and yeah, so every color has a quote unquote like theme, but like I said, these aren't by the book. These can be used however you want to, but this is what we typically see in movies with certain colors. So yeah, we talk about this monochromatic, um, analogous, um, analogous or analogous. I don't know how to pronounce that. Um, but complementary uh, and triadic. Um, I want to explain triadic. So triadic is a lesser known and a lesser used color scheme. So this is when you have three colors um, that are on the color wheel used in the same shot. So three primary colors used. So let me be sure. Okay, so 1 second. Just want to pull it up. Triadic. Okay. So so triadic consists of three colors that are evenly spread out on the traditional color wheel. Black and white may represent within chromatic harmony. Um, a traditionally based triadic color scheme focuses on dominant color with the other two evenly spaced, both serving as accents. So, for example, yellow, red, and blue would be triadic, and then green, orange, and purple. So here's some other examples. So like in Superman, that was a great example. Well, here first, they have it here. So we got that red, we got that yellow, we got that blue. It's a different feeling. I haven't really seen that many movies use this, but some do. Uh, it's just very stylistic. It makes it look like something. It makes it look like an illusion, like not illusion, but kind of like a fantasy movie or like a movie that like there's something like about it and meaningful. I just don't know it yet. Um, they use it here, Bottle Rocket. They use it right here. So that green. Uh, this is supposed to be like orange, but brown and blue. Um, So the Incredible Hulk, yeah, triad. So the green of Hulk's skin, and the purple of his pants, and the orange of the desert. Um, Triadic, but that's a lesser used one. So that's not very common. But Superman is also triadic. Got this blue, red, and yellow color scheme going. So, oops, I didn't even show it. I gotta remember to share the screen. Why does it do that? Hold on, let me share completely. Entire screen. Okay. So this was the triadic I was showing. That's like right here, this yellow, red, and blue triadic, 3 different colors on the wheel that accent each other. This shot here, the green from the Hawk, his purple pants, and the orange rocks. So that's triadic. It's lesser known, lesser used, but it's one that is used sometimes for certain looks. What else we got? Okay, I want to show this video. But it is, let me switch my YouTube account. Okay, so this is the video I wanted to show. I'll share it 1 second. Sorry, just okay. There we go. All right, so this is the video I wanted to show. All right, so this is a good video. Pay attention to this. Let me stop sharing and now share window. Okay, so this video here, it kind of shows you how color is used not only in film, but certain colors represent certain themes. And so it's a fun fact, if you ever watched The Godfather, the movie The First Godfather, anytime you see an orange, like an actual fruit, the orange, somebody's about to get killed. That's a theme in the movie, that anytime there's an orange in the shot or an orange shows up somewhere, you know somebody's about to die. The director did that on purpose as a little like Easter egg. I don't know why, but uh, he did that. And so anytime you see an orange, someone's about to die. So you can set a theme to a color as well. So you can say, you know, anytime you see red, you know, that means something bad's about to happen. Or anytime you see red, they may about to fall in love with somebody, so there are certain themes you can attach to colors as well. And I want to show that in this video because they explain it really well. And I'll stop it and make some points.
Hey guys, Justice here with tomorrowsfilmmakers.com, the largest online film academy in the world. And today we're going to be talking about cinematic color. Now, if you haven't seen our other videos on cinematic composition, cinematic lighting, and cinematic movement, definitely go check those out because I think those would be really helpful for you guys to watch and understand more about cinematography. But today I want to talk about something that isn't talked about nearly as much as it should, and that is cinematic color in your storytelling. Now, did you know that you can make an audience feel a certain way just by showing a color? It could be the color of a light, the color of a jacket, a car, even the atmosphere around them. all of these can communicate a message. So in this lesson, we're going to show you how they use color in Hollywood today, and also how you can use color in your projects. But if you enjoy these lessons and you'd like to learn even more, you can check out our full academy at tomorrowsfilmmakers.com. We have over 1,000 training videos and over 100 hours of content on every single filmmaking subject you can imagine, just like this. We have had over 10,000 students join our academy, and they are loving it. And right now we are doing something we have never done before, and we are running an insane sale of only $97 for our lifetime membership to our award-winning online film course. So if you want to take your filmmaking to an entirely new level and learn all about filmmaking from professionals in the industry, click the link in the description and head on over to tomorrowsfilmmakers.com to learn more. But with that being said, how can color tell a story? Or more importantly, what is the purpose of color in your films? You would think that every single color would have a specific feeling that is universally used that way. Orange is nice and warm and gives a homey kind of feel, while blue is very cool and can be used to show danger or some other emotion. And while that may be true to a degree, if you establish a color to mean something at the beginning of a film, the audience will subconsciously feel that way when you show the color again. So if we establish that warm is bad and blue is good, when warm color comes on the screen, the audience will start to feel uneasy without knowing exactly why. And that's the beauty of color in a film. It's not supposed to be noticed. The color in your films is purposeful, but should never be noticed. Now, what do I mean by this? So let's just take a color that has importance in a film. Now, like him or not, M. Night Shyamalan is a master of color in film and has always used the color red to show something significant in his films. If something major is about to happen, the color red is always present. A red doorknob, a red shirt, red balloon. There is significance in the color red.
You would notice that there were little clues along the way, and one of them was with the color red.
We use the color red to indicate anything in the real world that has been tainted by the other world.
So since he's established that color as significant, the rest of the films are surprisingly absent of the color red. Why is that? Because the color red is only used for something significant. If it was just throughout the rest of the movie, the audience would be confused.
Anytime there was red by mistake, I was like, get it out, get it out.
Now, in his fourth film, The Village, he uses the color red to an extreme. There are creatures in the woods that are attracted to the color red, so everyone always wears the color yellow. When you see red, you automatically feel scared and concerned because they're holding the bad color.
This color attracts those we don't speak of. You must bury it.
Now, this is an obvious example because even in the film, they bring attention to a certain color being bad. But what about a film that doesn't bring attention to itself? Let's take two projects about plagues and disease and see how they handle color. Contagion versus Chernobyl. One is a movie and one is a miniseries, but they both deal with sickness, illness, and disease, and I absolutely love both of them. But if we look at Contagion, we can see right at the beginning that anytime someone has the disease, it's a strong yellow color. And not just a nice yellow, but a sick caution tape kind of yellow. If scientists handle the disease, the suits are yellow. If it shows someone coughing, there's a yellow environment. The director establishes right from the beginning that yellow is a bad color. But when someone doesn't have the sickness, it's bluer than anything you have ever seen before. And why is there such a contrast? Because the movie establishes right at the beginning that yellow is dangerous and blue is safe. And once you establish that, you can let the audience know if something is safe or not just by making it a certain color. When the vaccine comes out, the wrist strap that everyone gets after you take the shot is blue, signifying that the vaccine here is safe. If the wrist strap was yellow, we would automatically feel like the vaccine might not work or was even some sort of fake. And all of this emotion is just by the color of the wrist strap. The color of the wrist strap gives you all these emotions because we have established the color from the very beginning. If we take Chernobyl, they established right at the beginning that green is bad. Anytime radiation is present, there is a green tint throughout the entire scene. When our main character thinks everything is fine, it's normal colors, and whenever he reads about the radiation leak, the color immediately turns green, a sickly, gross green. So green is dangerous and blue is safe. And again, once we establish those colors, we can continue to show the audience what is safe and what is not. The hazmat suits are green, signifying radiation. When she visits her husband in the hospital, the curtains are a nice white, but whenever he is dying of radiation, the curtain becomes an eerie green. The sanitation trucks that clean the radiation, they are blue, signifying that this is safe. The captain, who wears green for the entire runtime, has to convince a group of men to move radioactive rocks from the roof. While he's doing that, he's wearing green. When the job is finished, all of a sudden he's wearing blue. This shows the audience that the job they're about to do is dangerous, and then whenever it is done, the danger is now over and it is safe. 3 men are tasked with disposing of radioactive animals, and the truck they drive is blue, which is safe, yet the truck bed with all the radioactive animals is green. This two-tone color of this truck was not by accident. It's showing us that in the cab is safe and whatever is in the back is not. Both of these films communicate danger and safety to the audience by establishing dangerous and safe colors at the beginning and using them throughout the entire runtime. But like I said at the beginning, the thing I love about color in film is that, yes, I'm bringing attention to it, but when you watch it, this is not something that you ever notice. This is a subconscious message communicated to the audience. So when the audience sees someone walk into a green room in Chernobyl, they don't think, there's green in this room, he should get out of there. Instead, they think, it's dangerous, he should get out of there. And the audience doesn't know exactly why they know there is danger in this room, but they just know it isn't safe. And we know it's because the director has established a good and bad color, and we are showing the audience the bad color in this room. This is not something the audience is aware of, but subconsciously, this information is fed to the audience and determines exactly how they feel. Now, a franchise like Star Wars is an obvious example of the battle of colors, red versus blue, and we always know who is good and who is bad. In The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams uses these two colors to visually show the inner struggle of Kylo Ren. As Kylo is trying to figure out what he should do and the decision he needs to make, we as the audience see the struggle visually with red and blue on either side of his face. When he finally makes his decision, we know what decision has been made before anything happens because the blue light fades away and we are left with nothing but red. Again, subconsciously giving the audience the information they need without the audience knowing. And color in film doesn't just have to be good or bad color. You can have a character associated with a color. This character is associated with blue, and this character is always associated with orange. When you see the two mix, you know that these two characters' paths are about to cross. In The Godfather, the color orange is always used to associate death. Not red, not blue, but orange. So before someone dies, the color orange is always present. And sometimes it's an overall hue to the scene, and sometimes it's more subtle, like actual oranges spilling across the frame whenever someone dies. In Breaking Bad, our main character, Walt, is always wearing bright colors at the beginning of the show. But towards the end of the show, as Walt starts to become more and more wicked, his colors start to get darker and darker. And in a very famous scene where he reveals the true nature to his wife and how dangerous he really is, he removes his red overshirt to reveal an even darker red undershirt, a visual representation of the darkness hiding underneath his already dark exterior. And all we have done is change the color of his clothing. In the movie Her, when our main character falls in love with an operating system named Samantha, the color red is always used to represent their relationship. Samantha is the color red, and when Theodore is around her or falling in love with her, he is wearing red or there is red around him. This represents that this operating system that he is in love with is affecting every part of his life, and he's not able to get away from it. When he finally realizes that many people are also experiencing what he is experiencing, we start to see others with that same red in their clothing. And when Theodore finally does get rid of Samantha, red is now absent from his life. And not only does he feel free, but we as the audience feels free. Red represents Samantha, and when their character is free from her, red is gone. But what about not just color in clothing, but the absence of color, or more, the absence of saturation in clothing? In Secret Window, our main character and his wife are going through a terrible divorce, and they have lost all joy in life. So every piece of clothing that they have is faded and void of color. When they stand next to someone else, they stand out because their clothes are so faded. And this was done on purpose.
Working with the color, the mid-tone color, kind of color that they were very strong, but they fade down like under the sun. It's a kind of twilight zone. Everything is loose, everything is fade, and compared to the flashback and compared to the other character, where the color is more bright, more colorful, more happy.
You can even take color a step further and have a certain color represent something our main character is searching for. A well-known example is in Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve has stated that the color yellow represents the truth our main character is looking for. And the color yellow becomes more and more frequent as our character comes closer to the truth. From a yellow flower to a small light in another room, or a small yellow light in the room where he is discovering more truth. And towards the end of the film, when he finally finds what he's looking for, the entire scene is yellow, representing that he has finally found the truth he was searching for throughout the entire film. So as you can see, color is used in storytelling all the time, and it doesn't just need to be an overall wash of the image. It can be a specific item, a light through a window, an article of clothing, or the absence of color in clothing. And to use color in your films is very simple. Just establish the color scheme at the beginning of the film and carry that throughout the entire project. If you choose blue as a bad color, then have your villain wear some sort of blue, or maybe when something bad happens, there's a blue light in the background. Establish the color at the beginning of the film, and then you are able to subconsciously make the audience feel a certain way without saying anything and without the audience even knowing about it. So I hope that you guys have really enjoyed this video and has helped you guys out on how to use color in your film.
Yeah, so a lot of information there, but I just want to show how you can use color for a lot of different things. You saw in the movie, they used it in Contagion. When they see the yellow, that means sick, and when they see blue, that means it's safe. So you have those two contrasts, and you establish it at the beginning, and you're able to get really creative with color. Also, the absence of color, or having a certain light, or them wearing certain things. So you can get really fun with color. Like I said, certain colors have a different psychological effect. So having certain colors could draw you in more. So that could possibly get you more a better audience, or bigger audience, or more engagement, because they're just drawn to it visually and they don't even know why, they just are. But if you know there's science behind it, it will make sense. So you can use these techniques in your own movie, in your own videos, and it's nothing even too extravagant. You're just using color in a way that's represents something, or just being creative with it. But again, there's no right or wrong, but certain colors do give you a certain feel. So I would just keep that in mind. Let's see. One second, share. Okay. I was looking for, oh yeah. think that saved it. Okay. But we'll just get that. And I'll just jump into CapCut and show you how to color grade. Oops. Show you how to color grade. Let me just be sure that was all I want to show here though. But okay, yeah, let's jump into CapCut. Okay, I'll save this for the end. So I'll come back to this. This is what I wanted to show. Okay. So yeah, let's jump into CapCut and then I'll finish it off with this video. So let me stop sharing. Let me open up CapCut. All right. So you should be seeing my screen. Um, so let's bring some footage in here and color grade it. Let's see how we can use color in CapCut and how we can actually manipulate color and give us a certain look based off a color. So let me first get some footage. Get some footage and I'll bring it in. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. I'll put it in my documents. All right. So let's color grade something and give it a certain look. So first, let's start a new project. All right. So we're in CapCut. Cool. Now, let's import some footage. So again, if you want to import footage, that's the first thing you see. Just click import and then documents, which is where I saved it. So you want to find your footage wherever you saved it. I know I saved mine here. So here's my footage. And so let's color grade this. But let's treat this like an actual movie. Let's think about what type of color we want to get this and why, right? What color do we want to make this video and why? So right now it looks grayscale, kind of unsaturated, really no color to it. It's not the best, right? It can have definitely more color, make it more visually appealing, cinematic. It's kind of, yeah, desaturated, yeah, no vibrance, very kind of grayscale, low contrast. So let's change it up. Let's make this look good. So before we do that, what type of look do we want to give it? Well, let's just give an example. Okay, so let's say this really was in Utah. So let's give it that desert look. Let's do that complementary color look that we were showing before with Mad Max, right? Give it that yellow and that orange desert and blue sky look. And I'll show you again what I mean. So this right here, this look, like this desert look. Let's replicate this exact look. This desert orange and blue sky. So this is what we're gonna do. And the reason why is because it makes it seem like a movie, a visually striking desert movie. And we're gonna play with those complementary colors to just show you how to do it in CapCut. So okay, back in CapCut. Now let's drag our footage to our timeline. Great. So again, it looks unmuted and we need to add some color. So what you want to do is first click your video, go to adjustments, and then you may not see anything, but you want to scroll down. And here's how we're gonna change the color up, right? So again, we want that blue and green look. So what I recommend is honestly, when just playing with this, move stuff around, see what it does. Uh, what looks good, what doesn't. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, um, yeah, well, I would say, think about what look you want to have, right? How do certain things play with other things? So right now we're playing with temperature. So we can see that's between blue and yellow. So you just play with them, see what they do. So like I said, with that desert look, so let's try to get it like that. So maybe we'll make it a little bit orange here. Actually, we won't even touch the tint. Let's keep the tint the same, or the temperature. Let's just boost the saturation up a little bit. Okay, cool. It's looking good. Still unsaturated a little bit. Okay, what can we do? Well, let's play with the exposure. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, let's play with the contrast. All right, getting somewhere a little bit. Let's play with the highlights. Maybe like that. Play with the shadows. All right, now we getting more cinematic here. Play with the whites. And then the blacks. Brilliance. No, then I gotta sharpen it. Maybe a little bit of particles, which is like grain. Yeah. So that looks decent so far. So this is without and this is with. So we went from that to this that quickly by just playing with this. But it's still to me, like you could be done here, but to me it still looks a little bit not cinematic enough. It looks good, but it looks like a picture, like a photo. But I want it to look more cinematic. So how do we do that? Well, there are other things you can play with. So let's say we play with this a little bit. Okay, we got what we wanted there. Now let's move over. We have some things called HSL secondary, which means this takes certain colors in the software and heightens them. So it's basically a color selector. So you're basically selecting certain colors in the video that you want to edit. Versus editing the whole thing, you pick certain colors. So let's say the sky, right? What color is the sky? Blue. So I can click blue, and now I can just adjust only the stuff that's blue, which is the sky. So now I can literally just play with this. But you got to remember, there are other things blue here too. So the sky is blue. This guy's hat is blue. So any blue in the shot is gonna get adjusted. So you want to be careful with that. So we probably want to make it like that. Maybe brighten it and then something like that. Okay. And then boost saturation. Cool. All right. Now let's play with the sand a little bit. Let's see what we can do with the sand, which would be orange. So do that. Maybe saturate it a little bit and turn the brightness down. Cool. So yeah, HSO secondary, that lets you get even more creative. It picks certain colors in the shot that you want to edit. So now we went from that, which is not good at all, to this, which is a lot better in my opinion. And you just did this right in CapCut, and that's literally it. Just go to adjustments, scroll down, and then color, and now you have options color. Then we have some other options like curve, where you have even more control. Uh, you can make points, and you get this allows more flexibility. So if you're making points, it's like math. There's like math involved, but it's not that. You're just making points to where you adjust. So up brightens it, down darkens it. So you can create certain waves to give certain looks. So you can get creative with that. And then you have other colors. So we can make it more red or um, less red, um, green, more green. Oops, more green or less green. Same with blue. You can play with your blues. And yeah, just experiment, play with them, see what they do. And then we have our color wheel at the end, right? So now you can really get creative. This plays with our shadows. So let's say you want to adjust the color of the shadows. You can change the color of that. That's how you change the value. That's how you change. You can see it a little bit right here, but we need to adjust it. And I got some middle tone stuff. Maybe not play with that as much. Highlights you can play with. Offset. And yeah, just different ways to color grade. And they all are labeled for what they are. So the shadow, for example, this is basically saying, okay, what color do you want to add to the shadow? Do you want to be on the more red side, the more green side, the more blue side, the middle tone, right? How do you want you may not know what the middle tone is, but it's basically just the tone of the shot. So do you want it more like this? And now it gets a little bit more cinematic. A highlight is the amount of light, right? Type of light. So all the stuff that's bright in the shot, so like all of that and the clouds and anything that's bright, this is adjusting that. So that's what if you ever see highlights, it is just basically the brightest lights in the shot. That's basically what it is. And the offset, this basically just completely changes the colors on you. So like it inverses the color wheel. So you don't really need to know about that, but a lot of the stuff you just go off what looks good, to be honest. Um, and yeah, and so that's pretty dope color grading. So if we play this through, that's what we get. So that looks a lot better than you can even expand that. So yeah. Um, yeah, so from that, it's horrible um, to this. So, and that's really it, color grading and CapCut. There's nothing much else to color grade. But like I said, a lot of this is just more intentional, right? Thinking about what type of look do you want? What type of shot and emotion do you want to give off? Want the audience to feel? So it's all about emotion. It's all about what you want them to feel when they watch it. And yeah, so uh, that's really the extent of color grading and CapCut. To be honest, not much. It's really simple, but it does a lot. You see, so it's free stuff. They have some other paid stuff that you can get if you have the pro version, but you really don't even need it. Uh, this is good enough. Uh, and yeah, so yeah, that's color grading in Premiere. Again, to get to it, first import your clips, drag it to the timeline, select the clip, go to adjustments and scroll down, all your color stuff right here. That's it. Um, let's see. Any questions at all? Um,
No, that was really nice. Very
Cool.
interesting segment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's right there. Like I said, like I didn't even a lot of this stuff I just played around with, you know. So it's stuff that you can just do on your own and just practice, you know, whenever you have the time. It's fun. I mean, in my opinion, that's the most probably one of the that's probably the second most enjoyable things I like doing in like the film stuff. I would say like cinematography and then color grading. I really like playing with color and giving a different it makes you feel like you're in another world. And just doing that, like that's what a movie's about. You want people to like escape and go into your world. Um, and so that's why I really like it. And but yep. So like 20 minutes left. So I will play through this video that I was gonna show. Um, before I do that though, I want to make sure I covered everything in CapCut. Um,
I have a question.
yes.
So like when you watch like a low budget movie, you can tell like, okay, this is low budget. It was shot on like a basic camera. It doesn't really look like they went into like Photoshop and did any color grading. So do you think like color grading gives your show or movie like a more expensive effect?
Yeah, so to answer the first question is can I tell like yeah but but not always because there are some movies that are low budget um and it depends how low budget you mean like independent film or like really low budget but like if we're talking about like just like really low budget um they there are times where yes like you can tell like they didn't really do much color grading to it they kind of just shot it on the camera and just you
Mm-hmm.
know did it like that and that's not wrong you know you don't have to particularly like color grade your movie to look amazing or visually appealing you know what I mean that's not a requirement but it's an added layer to really add that extra effect of whatever you're trying to do so like the movie Twilight for example they did not have to make it look that green and that green sick tint. They didn't have to do that. Like if we would have watched that
Right.
movie without that, with a maybe even just a clear like none of that, just a really basic look, you know, the movie would have
Mm-hmm.
still been okay for what it is. But that color
Mm-hmm.
grading gave it that extra, you know, like it made us feel like, you
That
know, it was
extra
like
balance. Yep.
exactly. It made us feel like, you know, we were like there, and it's like it's more of a cinema. It's more of an experience. You know what I mean? But you know, like I said, you don't necessarily have to. It's not like a requirement. But most movies in theaters are color graded. But a lot of low budget or independent, a lot of low budget or independent films, they're not always necessarily color graded. They may have, you know, like a little bit of color, brighten it up here and there, but nothing drastic, drastic
Right.
as like. But most movies that you see in theaters that are from a production company, uh,
Mm-hmm.
like you know they have color grade they use color grading
Okay.
9 times out of 10 yeah and yeah it's just like you know that extra but like I said if the movie is bad though like you like that's what I really want to hone in on like I've seen a lot of movies that look amazing but were really bad and so it's like
That's
really
true.
bad to watch. So I'm like, this is visually appealing, but I wouldn't recommend this movie to
Mm-hmm.
anybody. Like I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite. I mean, I may recommend it in terms of like the cinematography, but I wouldn't recommend it in like, you know, this is one of my favorite movies. You need to watch this. But and then on the opposite end, I've seen movies that didn't have any color grading or were really well done. And so it was like, wow, this is great. So it didn't even really need that. So it can really go either way, but you really need the story first. Like that, everything else, even in like all these videos, all cinematographers and directors will tell you um, that you like the movie itself has to be good. The visuals are just that extra component. Um, to spice it up. But yeah, I love color grading, and I love the before and after. Like seeing how movies look before. Like, and I'm gonna just show you this really quick. I'm gonna just show you, like, you can see how movies look while they're shot, and then movies how they look when they're color graded. So um, color grade, and you'll see the difference on color grade before and after. So like this movie, Mad Max, like I was saying, this movie was shot in like a grayscale kind of look. So if we watch this movie, now this movie, Mad Max, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's one of my favorite. It's a really, really good movie. Like for a lot of different reasons. Like it checks off the box for almost every category, for cinematography, story, acting, special effect, like everything. It pretty much checks off the box. And so I like using this movie for a lot of examples, but particularly the color grading. So like if we would have seen this movie, like if I would have seen this movie without this color grading, the movie still would have been pretty good. It still would have been like a pretty good movie because it still had that, it still had the core of the movie was still good. But when they added this look, like this desert look, they just really added to it. It made us say, okay, we're here, like we're in it. And so, I mean, it's what you're saying. A movie is 50% visuals, 50% audio, is what they say. But I would argue it's a little bit more of audio than it is visual. Um, but that's debatable. But they say it's 50-50, right? So if you're watching a movie, you want to look at something that looks good. So um, that adds to it. But like I said, most movies in theaters, all of them, if not all of them, have been color graded to just give that cinematic experience. But that's one that you can see, and even this, um, it's not really showing, but let me see. Like stuff like this, just seeing the difference like that. Well, that's not really one, but they have this thing where you can, yeah, like, no, that's not it. Can you do it with this one? Yeah, this is not what I wanted to show you. Hold on, color grade pack. Let's find it. But it was basically a website where you can like actually scroll and see like the before and after, like this. Yeah, they're not letting me do it. But yeah, that's color grading. So yeah, next time you watch a movie, maybe look at the color grading, see how what they do. Do they use those complementary colors? Like, do they use that red and do they use that orange and blue, or do they use red and purple, or do they use sorry, it's blue and orange, red and purple, and then uh, green. Now well, I know orange and blue. All right, so okay, so yeah, yellow, purple, red and green, orange and blue. So next time you see a movie, they most likely will have one of these. And so yeah, so you might catch that next time and see, okay, I see now. But yeah, that's a common theme in a lot of movies. They use this triangle complementary colors. But yeah, I'll there's no other questions. I'll finish the class off with this like last 5 minute video that I thought was cool. Yeah, start here. So I'll share my screen. Oh, hey, my screen even shared. I hate that.
Now, let's take a look at color temperature decisions in movies. Before we discuss these examples, it's important to remember that the color decisions we see in the final product of these films are a combination of color temperature, correction, and grading.
Excuse me. May I have the blinking pillow pack, please?
Sure. $125.
So, what are some creative ways cinematographers use color temperature? In A Ghost Story, the main location is a house that sees many occupants over many years. To help mark these jumps in time, DP Andrew Palermo explains how they adjusted the color temperature of the kitchen light, depending on who is living in the house. In this shot, it has a half-pink party gel on it. With the Latino family, it had a little bit of CTB, color temperature blue. And then when it's Casey and Rudy's house, it's CTO, color temperature orange. Orange was an important color in Palm Springs. Here's DP Ku Yen Tran to explain. The color orange plays a very prominent role in their love story. We use it for the cave light, the color of the tent, the orange firelight from the campfire scene. When Niles is at the bar and he finally recognizes that Sarah is the reason for his existence, I have an in-camera light gag where all the lights go dim in the bar and the color on her face goes from a neutral white to a deep reddish orange.
Oh my God. I'm an idiot.
This is an example of how color temperature doesn't just create mood, but can alter that mood for significant moments. In No Time to Die, cinematographer Linus Sandgren explains his approach. I love to light with color temperature to create depth in the imagery. We figured out color temperature shifts for different environments. Here, for the opening in Norway, the sequence was very cold and lit with a lot of contrast in colors. Then, contrasting that colorful sky with lab interiors, let's add a little cyan so it contrasts in a more beautiful way. Then add yellow colors to contrast with the cyan. We tried to make the movie a little more romantic, like romantic action. Heat can also be emphasized when you're using a variety of light sources, like in this scene from The Hangover 2.
So the first image as they wake up is going to be them waking up in a grimy room in the middle of Bangkok. It's daylight, but the lights are all on. There's a tungsten bulb in there to show contrast. There's uncorrected cyan fluorescence. The warm light that's coming in there now is representing heat, right? Because they're sweaty and hot. One of the things that we talked about when we talked about color temperature is the way it shows up in the form of like cool white or warm white. But the other thing that really plays into lighting that we see in our natural world is the green spike. Often with fluorescence, they have a very high green spike. So it means in relation to the 3200 film stock, when it shoots an uncorrected fluorescent, as I say, it's also showing up with all that green. So you mix that cool color temperature with the green and you get cyan.
Are we? Scared.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like, I don't know, that video was just talking about, and this is more like a cinematographer's thing, but I don't know, just the way that you can use light and give you so many different colors, like how they said they use like fluorescent light. Like here they said they use fluorescent light, tungsten light, fluorescent light, and then the light from the outside to represent heat. So they have these three different types of lights and colors going, which represent kind of like this dysfunction, like hangover. Like it really is like a hangover. But they use like the colors and the lights to represent that. So I thought that was cool. Um, yeah.
They might have achieved that look using color temperature.
But this was the
Get entertained.
Golden colors giving a slight.
they don't have it on here anymore. Basically, just gonna. Oh, here we go. All right. So this is what I mean. So like the Irishman movie, this is how it was shot. This is the LUT that was color graded to it. This is what it was. So for this shot, this is how it was originally shot with the camera on a red dragon. This is how it looks color graded. Looks a lot more cinematic and visually appealing. Same with this scene. If it was just like this, it wouldn't be that bad, still pretty decent. But like that just adds like a different effect to it, adds that cinema-like look. Same with this film. That looks okay, but that looks a lot better. Good shot. That. James Bond. Captain America. Yeah, it's a lot of them. But you can just see the difference though. Oh, that orange and blue again. Annie. Yep. Yeah, so that's all I got today on color. And then next week we'll pick it back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Elaine is up next. She'll be on soon. I think she teaches well, I know she teaches legal. So yeah, like legal in terms of like gaming and esports and you know, copyright and all of that. So recommend staying on for that. And then yeah, get your gift card and everything, get your hours. So it'll be good. But I'll probably just stay on until she hops on and then catch you next week.
Hello. You said I can go ahead? Okay, perfect. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Good evening, Noma and Elijah. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Good evening.
So, thanks for joining us here today. Last week, we talked about, kind of gave an overview of what this class will cover, and that included some copyright, trademark, intellectual property information. This week, we just learned in the world of video gaming or in the world of maybe superglomerates like Marvel and DC, they trademarked the term superhero. And so no one else can use that term. And just recently, this week, uh, the United States Office of Patents and the United States Patent and Trademark Office has discontinued their patent. So I'm going to show a brief video and then we'll kind of go over it in detail. This brief video talks about oh, hold on. I didn't include sound. Hold on. All right, here we go. And now you guys should be able to hear it. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
Marvel and DC just lost a huge deal in court. But what does it actually mean? Well, we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about the recent court case that saw Marvel and DC lose their trademark status to the term of superhero. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about the case, what it really means, and how ultimately it probably won't have much impact on the industries we all love. Well, many people don't know it, but Marvel and DC for the longest time owned a trademark to the term superhero. Now, this meant only Marvel and DC comics could refer to their characters as superhero, and this is why in many other comics they're referred to as enhanced or special or some other term besides superhero. Now, the US Patent and Trademark Office recently, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has completely shaken things up because that long-held trademark by Marvel and DC has now been canceled. Now, this comes via an announcement from a law firm named Reitman, Jorgensen, Liam, and Fieldberg, and they recently declared victory over Marvel and DC in a case over the word superhero. Their request was granted after Marvel and DC failed to get some response to a court request over the challenge to the joint trademark, and now that it's been canceled, their clients, which was Super Babies Limited, can use the term without issue. This also means many other companies that want to refer to the term superhero can actually use it. This could be relevant in not only comic books, but many other areas such as role-playing games. So expect to see the term of superhero used a lot in the coming months. Now, DC and Marvel actually got
Charlie?
this joint trademark way back in 1977, and it was for the specific term of superhero. Since then, they've had an undefeated record defending the trademark multiple times, and this includes both in the United States and internationally. But this new challenge to the trademark was made back in May. Now, like I said, the challenge was issued by a company called Super Babies Ltd. And by Scott Richhold. And then what they stated was the term superhero, as well as terms like superhero or super dash hero, are generic terms, and they're really not entitled to trademark protection. And in their petition, they said that Marvel and DC were wrong, and it doesn't really allow them ownership over an entire genre. Probably the best other example of terms like this could be the term cola. You have Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, but there are many other variations from RC to Shasta to whoever bottles it locally to you. Cola is referring to the type of soda and not a company. And therefore, this would be the same as Pepsi and Coca-Cola trying to trademark the term cola, hold on to it, and not allow anybody else to refer to their drink as a cola. Now, this was one of those things many people were waiting to go against Marvel and DC for a really long time. It probably won't impact anything that they do in the future, just allow for competitors to use the word in their product, nothing more. Expect in the coming weeks a flurry of other companies using the term, but the pendulum will definitely swing back and it'll stabilize inside of the next couple of weeks. I think this is probably good for every creative. Marvel and DC holding this solely really was sort of weird. And honestly, you can look at any of the creators, even the low-level creators on social media, people that are kickstarting their projects, or just people that are working on their own work. Now they'll be able to refer to their creations as superheroes. Maybe that'll give them a little bit of a better chance in the overall market, or at least provide some inspiration for those projects. In any case, this is definitely a win for the little guy. And that's something we all like. I wish Super Babies all the luck, and I am really curious who's going to be the first big third-party comic provider to start using the term. We're going to have to wait and see.
All right, there's a delay. Hold on. Sorry, there's a delay. I feel like when I'm trying to get on and off mute. So that's the information that we're going to kind of talk about today. How we allowed that to happen. How did we allow this company to even have the term? How do we allow that superhero term to be patented? When did it happen? And what does it mean moving forward? Now, most people may not have even known, right? That it was a patented term that only Marvel and DC could use. I surely didn't know until this case came out. So it was really interesting to even learn. But that's the benefit of a trademark. That is, or anything else. So what Marvel and DC could have done was allow people to license the use of the term, to use the term, but they would contract them and they would have to pay Marvel and DC in order to use the term. So that's when I talked to you about, the importance of protecting your creative works and your creative arts. This is what we mean, and this is how it has long-term implications. So the Super Babies came from an artist in the United Kingdom who challenged Marvel and DC's ownership of the term superhero. Both companies failed to respond to the challenge, but it was their argument that superhero is a genre. It's not just a term of art. It has become much more than that. It has become a genre. And we've talked about it before, how you cannot copyright or trademark concepts that are necessary to realize an idea, like these common concepts. So the expectation is the term superhero has become so common or so necessary in order to realize, what kind of a figure with superpowers is. We just really traditionally call them superheroes. It's become so common that it shouldn't be trademarked. And that's what the argument was. So DC and Marvel didn't contest it, and long story short, they lost their trademark. But how long has this been going on, right? Marvel and DC jointly held 4 federal trademarks for the term superhero, dating superhero and superheroes in plural, dating back to 1967. So when we first saw superheroes like Superman, right? It was the first of their kind. We didn't see, they weren't already tapping into some type of industry that was already condoning or supporting or even marketing what we call or consider superheroes today. So it was an original concept, original theory, and they were able to, together, they were able to trademark that. So let's see, Elijah, do you know the superheroes in Marvel and DC? Or at least some of them?
Do.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Mhm. Who's your favorite superhero?
It's got to be Superman.
Superman, the original, right?
Well, the new one.
The new. Okay. Um, so all of the superheroes that we have today, if you go back and look, only Marvel and DC could coin that term, could use that term. So Super Babies filed their petition to cancel the trademarks. They argued 2 things: claim over ownership over an entire genre, and that 2 competitors cannot jointly own trademarks. So how do we feel about that? We know Marvel and DC are both competitors. Should they be able to jointly own an idea, a trademark? Should they be able to come together?
I don't think so. I don't even know how they got to that point. So the trademark is usually held by one person. So I don't know how 2 rival companies held the trademark.
Right. So, and I'm sure back in the 1960s, it was an agreement between the 2 of them because they both had a concept, they both had an idea. Regardless, we may never even know who came up with it first, but we'll try to see. You see that a lot with like Kellogg and Post, right? When we're talking about cereals, they both have similar cereals, different names, but they don't jointly own any of their trademarks. And that is an interesting concept. But you can do that. Like when more than one company or person applies together for a trademark registration, they're considered joint owners. They're accepted under the U.S. Trademark law. What you traditionally don't have, though, is 2 competitors doing that, right? We'll see that when we see maybe 2 business partners, or we kind of business partners, or 2 developers or creators who have jointly created something, but it's not very common to see 2 competitors doing it. But when that does happen, the expectation is that both parties are actively involved in the trademark's use, which is what we saw here. Both of them are using the term superhero. After that, though, you file for your trademark. A lawyer inspects the registration. So when we talk about the trademark application and the expectations, this is what you'll see. A lawyer will inspect the registration application before it's accepted and carefully check that the trademark and the companies using the trademark are owned by distinct parties, but jointly, and that can't be identified any other way. So what you want to make sure is if you do decide to own something jointly, you may be kind of business partners, but the two of you have your own separate business. You may be joint developers or creators, but you both have your own separate identities. Otherwise, it's just one company, right? If you work for a company, just because you created it, and we've had that conversation before, you can work for Marvel or DC, but just because you work for them doesn't mean the work is yours. It could very easily be considered the company's work because they're paying you a salary to create specific ideas or developments. After that, the lawyer will verify that the parties are not mislabeled as joint owners. Sorry. And they are, in fact, members of a joint venture or partnership or part of a trading entity. This inquiry is only essential when the application doesn't identify the applicants for joint ownership of the trademark. The application must have the applicant's relevant data and signatures. So just like with anything else, when you're talking about contracts or agreements, you always want to have the dates. You always want to have your signature. You want to review the documentation for its clarity and understanding in full, and then decide, whether or not the terms of the contract, that's what we call consideration. You want, in order for a contract to be legally binding, it has to have offer, acceptance, and consideration. So one person makes an offer, both parties consider the terms of the offer, and acceptance, a sign of acceptance, right, or agreement would be kind of sealed with your signature and a date, so we know when this went into effect. So then what ends up happening, right? What other things, when we have a joint ownership of a trademark, and now we know that each of us can use it, but what type of parameters do you think Marvel and DC had in place for the use of superhero? They could both use it, but since we're joint owners, can I then lease out my joint ownership in order for other individuals to use it, or do we have to decide together? What do you think?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. So if I'm a single owner of a trademark and someone else wants to use my trademark or its likeness, I can contract out or lease it and they can pay me to use it. That what would happen for a joint owner? Do we both have to agree when you're thinking about how the use of this particular trademark, since you both joint own it, you have to then discuss and decide how we will use it together and individually. So those are some things to consider. Would you be interested in, your joint owner leasing the trademark like superheroes, right, to other companies who are interested in using the term? Or would you require that the both of you only keep it for yourselves and for your own individual products?
I would definitely come to an agreement with the second owner so we can both get paid. So yeah.
Right, yeah. That's true. So what we often see as some advantages when we talk about joint ownership, there could be significant advantages, and money compensation is definitely one of them. And this is the reason why organizations come together. You can potentially do joint marketing, trading, manufacturing of the products or services. Now, for the superhero term or the label superhero, we know Marvel and DC didn't do joint marketing. Well, they did do some joint marketing when you had DC versus Marvel movies. So that's kind of a joint venture where they came together. When the superheroes came together. That's a bit of joint marketing. Um, but they didn't, they had their own identities. DC and Marvel had their own superheroes. They didn't really manufacture products or services together. But legally, the owners of joint trademarks should offer goods and services identical to one another. We have that here, right? We have Marvel superheroes and we have DC superheroes, very identical to one another. Some fly on both sides, some may be strong on both sides. They may have different names, but there are a lot of similarities in the superheroes across the aisle. So they were meeting their legal obligations. So it also just a benefit, I would say, to Marvel and DC having this joint ownership for superheroes, especially in the beginning of the superhero era, right? Is that it prevented disputes about ownership between both of them for its products. So they could each have their own identities, even if they are building it based on superheroes. But they don't have to argue that one can or cannot have a superhero. And this is ultimately what created kind of the genre of superheroes as a whole. The worldwide success of superheroes together, that Marvel and DC created together, both having that superhero title, but then individually as two separate conglomerates, is what we see today as kind of our the genre of mass reproduction of superheroes. Now, but like the video said, we're likely going to see more and more people coin their characters superheroes since the trademark no longer exists. And that's okay. It doesn't really take away from Marvel and DC because they have already established. They're well established. There's no question as to who either of them are. It's not and it's just a term at this point, but again, it became a genre, but it's just a term. That doesn't mean that you can now create Batman and call your character Batman or Superman, or they still own the likeness to their specific characters, but someone can create a superhero. What do you think could be some potential disadvantages of having joint ownership? When you think about the right for, to own something, let's say your mom owns something, right? And something happens. Where does her ownership go? Does it go to someone else? Does it go to her children? So how can you transfer ownership? Do you think that might be problematic when you have a joint ownership?
Written consent, like a will or something.
Yeah, absolutely. But normally when you have a joint owner, and this is something that you want to specify and have it documented very well. So you can have a joint owner, and if one party kind of passes away, does it go to the other? Does now the party that's still alive have 100% of that ownership? No, right? That 50% still stays, and you want it to at least still stay with the ownership, the original owner's family, with instead of relinquishing your ownership upon death, you want it to go to your heirs. And that's where You want to be very specific when we're talking about the transferability of ownership. It can also potentially interfere with the licensing of trademark, and it can impact the functionality and the result. And obviously, when there's any conflict, and we're talking about conflict between two or more people, where do we end up? In court, right? So then we'll end up in legal disputes, which take a really long time and cost a whole lot of money. So you want to make sure, even though you are agreeing to this joint ownership, you want to understand what that looks like long term. Even after death, right?
Right.
Even after death. So I want to look and see. Let's see. Okay. If there are other kind of joint owners, joint trademarks, popular joint trademarks out there that we may or may not know. And if you could joint own something with someone, there are some joint owners, joint trademarks, ownerships that you likely will know. But some examples of that, obviously, we know Marvel and DC. Swiss Army, the term Swiss Army, like, Swiss Army watch or Swiss Army knife, they're owned by two different, they have a joint trademark with Victorinox and Wanger. So we likely will see it when we have an approach, a collaborative approach that may present unique challenges and opportunities for businesses. So we want them to they might be interested in coming together. So Hero Motor Corp Limited was also a joint trademark venture ownership. Hero Motor Corp was an Indian entity and was established in 2014. After the dissolution of Hero Honda Motors Limited, the joint venture was between Hero and Honda Motors. So, may not have known that. Volvo and Ford Motor Company, two famous car companies in 1999. Volvo sold its car manufacturing division to Ford, but retained its rights in other automotive divisions. And even though that is the case, I believe still today the Volvo is still made in Sweden and not, even though it's a Ford product, it's still made overseas. And Ford Motor Company is manufactured here in the United States. We saw other joint ownerships like Sony and Ericsson, music companies. They combined their trademarks while maintaining their separate identities, and then ultimately created cellular communication devices, cell phones and music and other types of devices. So if you had an idea or a concept today, do you have an idea of who you may potentially want to, what trademark do you think will be beneficial for your current idea? If you have any.
I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry, I keep zoning out, but I'm here.
No worries. If you could partner with someone today and trademark, and have a joint trademark agreement or ownership, who do you think you'd be partnering with?
Who would I be partnering with?
Yep. Who would you partner with?
If I had a company or something?
Correct.
Oh,
If you had an idea what you're interested in, do you think there's another company that is interesting that you would joint, be interested in having a joint venture with?
mm, no.
No,
Oh, because people like to steal ideas.
they do, but that's
Yes.
where true, but that's where that is where contracts come into play and agreements, right? You have some tight knit, some agreements that would allow you to go ahead and engage in those joint ventures. For example, what if you came out with a new type of burger, something very different, right? And McDonald's was establishing their business at the same time. Would you be interested in a joint venture with McDonald's?
No, because I will just if I had a product, they can just contract the name or whatever they need and pay me. So no, I wouldn't
Yeah,
join.
that's
Yeah.
what you would do. I understand. What about you, Elijah? Would you like to work with someone else?
In my opinion, you know, working with someone else can be even more like an experience for yourself. Like if you like it or not. So in my opinion, if I work with someone else, it could change everything. So I'd rather work
Right.
with someone else.
You'd rather work with someone else?
Yeah.
Um, and I like that because you can come, like minds can come together and make a whole lot of money. So when we're talking about things that you're interested in, I know you're interested in coding and creating and developing. Um, the part of the trademark that's beneficial long term is brand recognition, right? Uh, what we tend to see when someone trademarks their product is that they have an idea or a concept and they're looking for a larger audience to recognize just on site. And the benefit to that is once you have that level of brand recognition, Marvel and DC does, then people will support anything that you put out after that, right? So when the first superheroes came out, people were immediately intrigued and then wanted to continue to watch movies or TV shows or buy paraphernalia and merchandise with superheroes on it because now they, you see mass success for one thing, and then they have bought into the concept. Um, and that's what you'll see, and that's what you're looking for, especially if you are trying to capitalize off of it financially. So we talked a little bit about both Marvel and DC to have this joint trademark, them both having to use it and having kind of those similarities. There are some similarities in superheroes and characters, but what other similarities do you think exists between Marvel and DC? Can you think of any? Let's see. One very popular similarity is that they both had comic books. They both had use of comic books. They both share kind of universes where their storylines took place, be it DC or I mean, right.
Like a crossover.
Correct. Yep, crossover events are similarities for sure.
crossover.
Where DC and the Avengers both cross over into their own different universes.
Since you mentioned crossover, I think I found something that pops up in my head.
What?
Since you mentioned the word crossover, the one thing that pops up in my mind is a crossover between two 80s classics, Gilligan's Island and Alf. So
they cross over?
Yeah, it was a crossover episode between that show and Gilligan's Island. And when Alf woke up, he was on Gilligan's Island.
Oh,
that show makes me laugh every time since I watch it.
And that's a very relevant crossover.
Yes.
Let's see. They both kind of had teen series. So we see Teen Titans from DC today. X-Men had a teen series.
Well, the Family Guy and The Simpsons had a crossover, and even Bob's Burgers and King of the Hill.
Even Bob's who?
Well, Bob's Burgers. Well, Family Guy had a crossover with The Simpsons and King of the Hill. And The Simpsons had a crossover with Bob's Burgers. So.
See, there you go. There were some very famous crossovers. You also saw similar characters. We kind of talked about that. Some of the similarities are like Batman and Iron Man. Are they supposed to be kind of similar? They're both, supposed to be loners and have their own, they're rich, right? They have their own superpowers, but they're man-made kind of superpowers versus other superheroes that are born with superpowers. Batman and Iron Man were not. They were just more humans. Yeah. What else? Can we talk about? So, yeah. This was just something that just happened recently. And so when we start to think about, we talked before about how Mickey Mouse lost its trademark, and the old original Mickey Mouse is no longer trademark, but Mickey Mouse kind of reinvented, and the newer version of Mickey Mouse Steamboat lost its trademark. And we currently have a new Mickey Mouse. So the original Mickey Mouse lost its trademark. But we also saw that with things like Winnie the Pooh, when Winnie the Pooh lost his trademark. And when Winnie the Pooh lost his trademark, what happened? Did people start using Winnie the Pooh? Some you might see, right? People use the story of Winnie, I'm sorry, the likeness of Winnie the Pooh. But the name Winnie the Pooh is still trademarked. But what did expire was the copyright. That's what expired. So anyone can use the characters from the original stories, but they cannot use the names. So someone might have a character that looks exactly like Winnie the Pooh, but they cannot use the name Winnie the Pooh. Some other characters that recently expired their trademark was Tigger. His trademark expired, or his copyright expired in January 2024. So you can use his likeness, but you cannot use the name. That makes sense?
Yeah. Okay. So can you renew?
You can.
Oh, okay. I bet it costs a lot of money. That's why they don't.
No. So you can keep it. So a copyright published or registered before 1978 can be renewed after 28 years. The renewal is optional. But what ends up happening is, though, anything created after 1978, the copyright protection lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So the reason why DC and Marvel, they renewed their their joint trademark uh 4 times, but this one just, so a trademark you have to renew every 25 years, I believe. A copyright can expire if it's before 1978, you can renew it after 28 years. After 1978, it has kind of it lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So what could potentially happen with that is, let's say, that at this point, that could potentially be like, let's say 140 years or so. You're 30, you die at 100, and then you have 70 years after that your family can still own the copyright to this particular product. So, although it's expensive, it's important because it's your money, right? It's your product. You're getting paid off of this. So you definitely want to make sure that you're renewing either your copyright or your trademark, because you've created something that has long-lasting effects. So it's and if you don't use something for 10 years, yeah, you can, if it's not trademarked for 10 years, um then you can lose it that way too. So, yeah. To keep your trademark alive is every 10 years, and then your copyright, if it was before 1978, is 28 years. After 1978, you copyright it for the life of the author plus 70 years. That's how that works. It does cost, but it's worth it, right? Because you're likely making far more money off of this product, or the recognition of this particular idea that you've either copyrighted or trademarked. So if it costs you thousands of dollars to secure millions of dollars, I'm sure you'll continue to do that, right? I know I would. Yeah.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we recently trademarked our program, our trauma informed, we have, Dr. Nance has a product that he created, and we recently trademarked that. So he will have it for 10 years. He would have to redo his renew his trademark in 10 years. For the program that you're sitting in today, actually. So this program, he wrote up the entire program, the expectations. He has a trauma component. So that trauma component was his own creation, his idea, and he has it protected. So no one can use that unless he allows them to do so, if they have the contractual obligation to do so. So they would have to pay Dr. Nance in order to do that, or they cannot use it. So he can license it out, he can sell it, he can allow other people to use it or not, but it is his to that he owns, and it is protected through the United States Patent and Trademarks Office. So yeah. that was kind of all that I had today. Just kind of go over a little bit of trademarks and patents and discuss what recently happened with Marvel and DC. Any questions for me?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, okay. I know you guys have kind of been back to back, so I'll give you about 15 minutes to take a break until you start your next class. All right, I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
You're
See you
welcome.
next week.
No questions.
FL Studio. I want to turn my camera off, but my mic will be on so you can still hear me, so I can still hear you all. All right, so let's open up FL Studio. All right, so this is FL Studio. This is FL Studio C once you first open it. Now, I will tell you that if you, well, not if, but when you do come for an in-person class, your FL Studio for the most part is going to look the same. It may be a bit different. I'm still on 21. You all have the newest one, which is now, they just go by 2025 years now, so 2024. But I'm on FL Studio 21. For the most part, it looks the same. This go be a little bit different, but everything else is going to look the same. So you open it up, and it look like this. This is your channel rack. We'll get to that in a minute. Right here is your browser, but you see you can like kind of get everything that you need to get like your current project, your recent files, plugin database, presets, all of that. But right now, what we're going to focus on right now is this right here, your packs. Your packs is where your sounds are going to be. If not 90%, 80% of your sounds is going to be in your packs. The other 20 may be plugins, and we'll get to that too in a little while. But all your sounds is going to be in your pack right now. FL Studio work on what you hear is what you get. What do I mean by that? I will show you an example. So I'm going to go to the Jake One Snare Jordan drum pack. How you hear the sound? You click on it. So what you hear is what you get. That's how FL Studio works, right? That's how you get the sounds. You able to click through all of them. I want to keep that one actually for later. Yeah. So what you hear, what you get. But that's how it works. And then to bring the sound to your channel, like I just did, I'm gonna delete this one and show you again. To bring this sound over, you will drag and drop. So you get the sound, and then you drag and drop. Now I can replace this one if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep it and I'm going to just put it under it. But that's how you put sounds on your channel rack. This is your channel rack. This is where the magic happens, right? So this is how you make your beats and everything. We're gonna come back to your channel rack. Um, right here is your song positioning for your tempo. I'm gonna move this out the way. Give me 1 second. Move it right there. This is your pattern song mode. Right here is your playlist, right? So as you see, this is your playlist. Um, Now in this class, how we're going to set the production up is easy. So what we're going to do is have our track 1 be our chorus, and then track 2 be our verse, right? Now, if you was in a professional setting, even then they do that in a professional setting, but if you was like in a professional setting going to a studio session, they would want you to have a track. What that means is track 1 will be your drums. Track 2 may be other drums that you may have because you can stack drums. May 3 may be your bass line or your sub bass or your deep bass 808. Number 4 would be your claps or your hi-hats. Your claps or your snares. Number 5, hi-hats. Number 6, instrumentation. Number 7, more instrumentation, so on and so forth. So each of these tracks would be different sounds for your song. And as you see, if we scroll down, you can have so many. Right now, 500. You can have up to 500 sounds on this playlist if you wanted to, but we're not going to get that far. We're just going to do track 1 and track 2. That's how that works. If I wanted in the song mode to play like this way, like once I set my beat up and I set the production up, I want to have the programming differently. Then you would, like I said, have like your verse, right? Have your verse and then have like your chorus, or your chorus and then have your verse right here, right? And then it would go back to your verse, and then to play this, you would go right here. Now, once this goes away, well, I'm gonna move this out the way. You see the arrow showed up. See, on my left here, it's not there. Like when I'm at the pattern mode, it's not there. When I'm with the snare, the arrow showed up. So that's how you know you can play on your playlist. But we're not going to use this right now, or we are, but we're not going to use as much. So let's go ahead and delete that. Go back to pattern. Play button, of course. So for playing the sword, it plays your channel rack or your playlist. Stop. It stops the song in your channel rack or your playlist. This is your metronome. So let me show you. Max out of here. Your channel rack. You see right now your temp. This is your tempo right here. It's on 130. So I'm gonna show you. And then I turn it up. I can turn it down. But we will keep it on like 160. And then you can also change the sound of it. So if you don't want the tick, you turn to a hi-hat, a beat, or a cowbell. But we'll keep it a tick, right? So that's how that works. That's your metronome. This is your countdown before recording. This is your wait for input to start. What this means is you can hook up like a MIDI keyboard or a MIDI MPC, and it won't record or play until you hit a button on your keyboard or your MPC. We're not going to really use that in this class, but that's what that is. Same thing with blend recording and loop recording. We're not going to really use those, but it just allows you to record over your production and add on to production. With blend record, loop recording is going to have that in the loop. So it may have a certain part of the song that you want in the loop, so you can play over it and get it right. Type keyboard to piano keyboard. So what that means is I can use a keyboard on my laptop or your desktop, and it would correspond to different notes. I will show you that example in a little while. Step editing mode, help edit steps of the whatever sound you need to have. Enable notes and clip groups. It allows you to go to piano roll and change things how you want. Multi-link controllers, that allows you to link up your MIDI keyboard or MPC. This is your main snap quantization step editing drop down menu. As you see, it have multiple options. We will get to that later down the line, but not right now. But pretty much, I will show you a little bit in a little while about what this can do. Pattern selector. Right now I'm on pattern 1, and I wanted to make, and this will be like my verse or my chorus. If I wanted to make another pattern, I would go to pattern 2, and it would be pattern 2. It'd be different. I know right now it's the same, but I will show you an example when I load it up. This is your playlist. We talked about that already. This is your piano roll. So for certain sounds, you have piano roll. So let me show you. I'm gonna go here. Everything start at C5, right? Everything started at C5, right? But let's say you wanted to change the note. You wanted to go higher. So higher C5, like C6, C7, you see how it changed, the note changed, the pitch changed. Higher, you go lower. C5, lower. You change the note. You go a down pitch, low note. And that's how that works. So that's your piano roll. And that works for most sounds. It works for most instruments. You can change the notes and everything, pianos, different synths, road keys, all of that, drums, hi-hat, snares. Nothing for the most part is not exempt for you being able to change the note in the piano roll. The piano roll gives you more of a visual aspect of how you want things to go. I was going to tell you, I did tell you that I was going to tell you what you can do with this. So right here, if you see it's lines right here, that's what line means. So everything will snap to that line, right? See, everything will snap to that line. You're not going to find anything go off. It's going to always going to be snapped to a line. If I said cell, it will snap to these squares. And then if I said like 1/6 step, it would go 1/6 step. If I said none, then it can go anywhere, right? So let me show you real quick. So line, you see, just snap right to that line right there. Now let's say none. If I want to do none, I can literally move it anywhere. It's not even snapped to a line. That's all that means. It definitely comes in handy when you want to do things like make a mistake kick. Just want to make off kilter beats. That definitely comes in handy. Again, this is your channel rack. This is where the magic happens. This is where you produce your music, produce your beats. Right here's your pattern length. We usually do 32. Because everything works in eighths. You know, it's easier to understand if everything works in eight. And how you can tell if it's in eighths, you will look at this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the metronome help you out too. So let's do this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's why I do it, because it's easier to understand and get a hold of if you understand that everything is an 8 starting off. But as you advance and move along with music production, you can go shorter, you can go longer, you can do a mix of both, right? So you're not beholden to that, but starting off, you will. This is your main swing. I'm gonna just do this as an example pretty much. If a swing is just you making everything off kilt just a little bit. So I'm gonna show you just an example. I'm gonna cut it. Right? Now this is swing. All that the swing, all it does is just move everything down just a little bit. That's all it does. And it definitely comes in handy if you want to make your beat a bit off kilter just to give it a bit of more of a bounce. It definitely come in handy. This would be your graphic editor where you can change the velocity, the note pitch, the release velocity, the fine pitching, the panning, all of that, right? Velocity is just volume. Your note pitch is what that is. Note pitch. You can do the same thing in the piano roll, though it's easier. Your release velocity would be same thing as velocity. It just cut off. It just pretty much you want it to cut off at a certain point. That's what that is. Panning, go left and right, and your fine pitch is just the little small tweaks that you can do to change the note. That's pretty much all that is. We're not gonna worry about mod X and mod Y right now. Next out of this. Next out of this. This is your mixer, which would be this key right here. This is your mixer board, just like in a real studio where you have a real physical mixer board. Same thing this is. It does the same thing, just digital space. As you see right now on your master, but just like the tracks in your playlist, you can have a multitude of 125 inserts for sounds and everything. This allows you, for example, if you wanted to add reverb, you can add reverb, you can add distortion, you can add a filter, a flanger, a gain, and you can open up other things like Edison, which is this software program that is built into FL Studio that will allow you to load up samples and cut the samples how you want it to be cut. That's what Edison does, and we will have a lecture about that later down the line in the upcoming weeks. And then pitch shifter, gross beats, all of that, different things that you can do with your beat. But this is where a lot of your effect plugins come into play, right? These is where you would be able to load up your effect plugins right here. Your sound plugins, I am still trying to get a plugin called Nexus 2 working. But with Nexus 2 is more of a sound plugin. You'll be able to access that in the channel rack, and I will show you an example of that in a minute. But this is what that is, though. You can turn it down right here. You can turn the volume down. You can turn the panning. You can do just a lot, right? You can swap channels. You can reverse polarity. You can do a lot with your mixer. It works just like a physical mixer board. It's just in a digital space. That's pretty much all to talk about right here. These you're not going to really use for this class, so we're not going to talk about it. Like I said, this is your sound position, this is your master monitor, this is your peak meter. Right here is a CP load. Now, FL Studio is built differently than most other DAWs. it is very dependent on your hardware. So you need to have some decent hardware in order to run FL Studio properly. Um, it's very heavy on your processor, and it can eat up your RAM, right? If this says right here, memory usage. So let's say after this class, after this cohort, you want to continue making music, continue making beats. What I suggest is that you get a laptop or a desktop that have at least 16 gigs of RAM, and you at least, I would say, you want to run at least, if you do Intel, i5K series, or if you do AMD, Ryzen 5 X series, so you can overclock it. If you do have a bit more money to spend, I would say to just get the i7 series for Intel, the Ryzen 7 series for uh, AMD, because it's going to be very heavy in your processor. And with those two processors the four I just named, the i5K, the i7, or the Ryzen 5X, or the Ryzen 7, FL Studio is going to be able to handle all of that and then some, right? Because you don't want your program to crash in the middle of you making a beat you didn't save. So you definitely want those two things. Those two things definitely. If you're looking to purchase a desktop or a laptop, like I said, for after this cohort, if you want to continue doing music production, 16 gigs of RAM, i5 or i7 or Ryzen 5X or a Ryzen 7 in order to run FL Studio properly, so it can just you have more than enough to throw at FL Studio that can handle. And also your storage, you want to have a nice big storage. I would say 1 terabyte, maybe even two. For example, let me just take an example about my setup at home. At home, I have a desktop. I have three. No, I actually have 4 different hard drives to my computer. Um, I have over 1 terabyte just dedicated to just drums, right? I have 1 terabyte dedicated to just drums, right? That's not even crazy. I know people that have 2, 3 terabytes of just drums. So you definitely want to have a nice amount of storage starting off. I would say 1 terabyte, maybe two. And you can have external hard drive if you need to. That works fine too. Um, but definitely you also want to just focus on your CPU, your processor, and your RAM when you're purchasing the new equipment for your own use after the cohort. Now, let's load up a project real quick. I'm going to load up a project. Just to show you an example of how everything works. Right. So this is Edison. This is what I use to use to cut my samples and everything right here. Edison. Um, I load up the sample and then I cut it, and then I cut it again. I load it up twice so I can have different parts, and then I would drag and drop over here to my channel rack. Now you can just drag and drop on your channel rack, but I drag and drop into a plugin that's built into FL Studio called Fruity Slicer. The reason why I do that is because it gives it an off-kilter beat when you play, and that's what I look for when I make this beat. I look for just kind of just having the sample off just a little bit. It's not really noticeable, but it gives a bit of bounce. And then let me show you my playlist. You see, in this how I have my playlist set up, and I'm going to play to show you this would be my chorus and this would be my verse. So I'm going to play for a hot second. I'm going to play this out, honestly, just the 4 bars here and the 4 bars for the 4 bars for the hook and 4 bars for the verse. And then I'm just gonna just go over a little bit of what I did. Um, if you have headphones on, I would suggest to turn them down a little bit. Like some of play this out, and then we'll talk about it in a second. So that's a beat that I was working on a couple months ago. I'm still not quite done, but just something I was working on a couple months ago. And as you see, my playlist is set up as pattern 1 would be my chorus, and then pattern 2 would be my verse. It's just 4 and 4, just something simple so I can get a feel for it. My tempo is 190. Now let's go to my channel rack. Let's go to pattern 1. So I'm gonna put it on pattern. So it's just gonna play this channel rack. I don't have it at 32. I have it at 48. It'll have a little bit of a swing on it. Pretty much I cut the sample how I wanted it to cut. I kind of figured I already kind of had an idea in my head of what I wanted, and I was able to achieve that. Sometimes beat production can go as easy as this beat is, but sometimes it can go notoriously longer than this. But it was pretty easy once I did it, and I put everything together, and it took me around. Now I have a third pattern that I haven't quite figured out yet. So as you see, yeah, it can go as easy for the first two parts, but for this part, I'm still kind of working on, just trying to figure that out. But that's just an example. I want to show you what the pattern with the playlist and the patterns and how this would work, and then just an idea of what you can make within the FL Studio. Now I'm going to open up a project from scratch, and I'm going to do something early to kind of give you an idea of what you're going to be doing once you come to class in person. So the first thing that you always want to work on when you do beat production is your drums, right? Because your drums will be your hardest part that you will have a hard time figuring out. What I tell everybody, right? What I tell everybody is to start off with your ones and your twos. And you may be asking yourself, what is your ones? What is your twos? I'm going to turn this up a little bit. I do 165. That's your ones and your twos. This is your ones right here, and these are your twos, your threes, your fours, your five. When I say put your ones and twos, I want you to put it on the first one for one, and then for the first slot for two, because you get this. Now you may be hearing this, and you like, what's the big deal? I will show you. And this is also a tip I'm going to show you. You for your hi-hats, because those gonna be one of the main constants in your beat that's always gonna be played. You can go here and go fill every two, and then fill every two slots on your channel rack. You like, why would you probably thinking, why would you want this? Because it would give you this. Right? It gives you that. And then I'm gonna use the verb. I'm not gonna use the snare, but you can. But I'm gonna put this on my 3 and on my 7. Because if I do that, it gives me this. Right? Something simple. You understand it. You see how easy it was for me to make that. And the reason why I always say start on your ones and two. Oh, and this is how you mute the sound. So that's just gonna play, but unmute and click on it. See it as green, and then play. If I click them off and be gray, it's just gonna mute them. They still there, just muted them. But the reason why I say start on your ones and your twos is because you can always subtract and take away, right? Always do that, right? Your ones and your twos are a good starting off point to expand your drum pattern, how you want your drum pattern to go. For example, I have it on my ones and twos. I'm going to leave those right there. I'm going to add one here, 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 here. So it'll sound like this. Oops, sorry, wait. I'm sorry about that one. I messed up right here. Okay, it's going to sound like this. And you can do that, right? But let's say you don't want that, right? You can take these 5 drum slots away if you want to. How you do that? You're going to hold the right click and you're going to go down. And it's going to delete those slots. And you have that. No harm, no foul, right? That's how that works. So I'm going to add some drums here, right? And then I'm just going to show you some things. So I'm going to keep that right there. My hi-hats, I'm going to take them to the piano roll. This is another tip that I was taught when I was a teenager. To give my hi-hats a bit of a bounce, I'm going to go down here to your velocity control. Just like you can go to the velocity control for your instruments in your channel rack, you can do the same thing piano roll. But with piano roll, it makes sense, right? Because it just looks clean. You're going to come down here, and for every other slot, you're just going to take the velocity down just a bit, as I'm doing here. And what that's going to sound like is this, right? And then to make this kind of stand out a bit more, I want to put a harder reverb on it, right? A reverb is going to make it echo. That's what that means, like reverberization, echoing. That's what that means, reverb. So how I'm going to do that, I'm going to left click on this instrument. You see it say track 2. So I know it's on track 2. So I'm going to X this out. I'm going to go to my mixer, and you see it's already on insert 2. I'm going to go to slot 1. I am going to go to my Luxverb, and this is Luxverb, and it's a trial version, so you save it. Well, for mine, it's a trial version. If I save, it's not going to save. But right now, I don't really care about that. This is an example, just a demo. So you have your plugins, your presets. Now you like, how did that sound show you? Actually, going to keep that one. Sound pretty good. But you have your presets right here, and this goes for most effects, most plugins. You can go right here and go to the next presets. As you see with this one, have 67 presets, but I'm going to leave this one on default. I am going to turn down the wet gain of it. What that allows me to do is turn down the reverb effect overall, so it won't be as strong, but it's going to be strong enough. So I'm going to turn this down just a bit. So you see, you see, it's, it got a little bit something there, and then at this point, I will probably add instrumentation or a sample and go on from there. Now, everything won't be as easy as I did. Once you get deep into it, it won't be as easy as what I'm doing right here. But for this example, it is pretty easy, and it's pretty nice, right? It's a pretty nice starting off point for you to have. And all I did was use 3 instruments, right? And yeah, I did use effect for the reverb, for the clap verb, and I did go to piano roll to turn down the velocity on every other sound. But it is easy to do, right? As I just shown you, it's pretty easy to do. Now I know you probably still a bit confused, and that's okay. Once you come into class in person, I can have hands-on training with you all, and it will be easier to understand. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I want to play a video from Metro Boom. He talked about into my camera back on. I want to play a video from Metro Boom. So he uses FL Studio also. A lot of producers do. Metro Boomin, Southside from 808 Mafia, if you ever heard of him. Pharrell from the Neptunes. Kanye West uses FL Studio for his drum programming. Timbaland, J. Cole, Madlib used FL Studio. He used FL Studio on a tablet to produce a project one time. So a lot of people use FL Studio. Knife Wonder. It's just, like I said, it's really easy, and it's easy to collaborate with other artists on because you can upload most other programs within FL Studio. But Metro Boomin video I'm going to play though, he was talking about when he got in touch with, no, not got in touch, but a producer that looked up to him, asked him like, hey, I'm really just getting into music. How do I make a beat? Like, how do you start off making a beat? And he's going to say what I'm going to say, what I'm going to drill in your head. You start off most of the time, 90% of the time, when you make a beat, when you start production, you're going to start off with your drums and then go from there. It's more organic. It makes sense because you want to get the rhythm part first of the percussion, and then you want to bring in your instrumentation like pianos or strings or horns of that nature. it's easy to bring all of that in, and then from there, uh, like do your drums first, and then from there bring in all the other stuff from there, right? Now, the other 10% of the time, you may have to build around your sample, right? Whether it's a loop or it's some cuts or whatever, right? With the cuts, it's pretty easier to do because you're just having cuts, different slices of beats. But if it's like a drum loop or just a loop of a sample, usually you build around that and you go from there. But like I said, though, it's just more organic to build. Start off with your drums first and then add everything extra. Now, this video that I'm going to play is about 8 minutes long, so it's not super, super long. But after the video, we're going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to tell you pretty much what's going to be the lecture for next class, um, and just my hope for you in this class at the end of the cohort. So give me a few minutes as I share the video. Give me 1 second.
So last night I was at the symphony event for Spider-Verse, and a young producer approached me. He was like, "Yo, I don't be knowing, should I start my drums first or the melody first, or what do you do? What should I do?" And I basically was like, whatever speaks to you, whatever's inspiring you in that moment the most. Like, if you have a drum beat in your mind, or you might have a melody in your mind first, like, you gotta go with the inspiration. But generally, I don't always start one each way. It's just however I'm feeling that day. Like, some days I go in my closet, I get dressed. I might build my outfit out my pants first. Sometimes I might have a shirt and just build around that, or a jacket. Just depends. So I said all that to say, um, I do also feel like today is often slept on by the younger generation, the power of starting with your drums first and securing a for sure bounce that's gonna work, a bounce that's gonna, a bounce in a rhythm that's gonna captivate people and just keep them moving. Cause like, you know what I'm saying? That's what we do music for. Like, you wanna move people. So, I'm saying all that to say and just share it's a true hack. If you just all the way lock in a crazy bounce, or just, that don't mean it need to be all that complex, but just a fire bounce to be as the foundation of your track, because your drum's always gonna be the heartbeat of your song or your record. So just securing a bounce, and then building everything else on top of that, putting whatever else you want to put on top of that, music wise. So saying watch this Georgia Alabama game, but hold on, let me see how I flip this. Can I not flip this? Come on, bro. Alright, anyway, so first thing I did is start with this hi-hat and this snare to kind of find what BPM I was we gonna work out of. So I start with this hi-hat and snare just to kind of get the head bob right. I was just moving the tempo around the BPM until I locked in right here at 117. Cause this is like, the bounce I envision. I add this open hat, the dusty, crusty open hat. Oh yeah, no, I forgot. I had dropped these snares out to like make more space. Put that perk right there. Turn that perk down some too, so that it's still like a fake blank space. But what I do next? Oh yeah. So this was cool, foundation. Then I added this bass line out of Trillium to kind of set the mood on what I was thinking. Feel me? Then I was going to Atmosphere for a sound, and I found this cool shaker thing on accident. So I just did a cool little pattern to that. Oh yeah, now before I did that, also I forgot to add this kick. Then I add this open hat, more like rhythm. And all my drum sounds, even my melodies, everything, I always use the shift knob to kind of like put it in whatever time and place it needs to be. So everything's not just so on the grid about it, you know. Just some movement. Shaker. So then I found this little 80s type synth out of Atmosphere. I did this. After that, I went to Atmosphere, laid these chords on it. I layered that. This choir doing the same thing. I found this cool riser sound in Atmosphere. Yeah, but y'all get it, man. Basically, I just made this video because that kid last night at the Spider-Verse show had inspired me by asking me that question. And yeah, I just realized how many younger producers today might sleep on starting your beats with your drums. I'm not saying you always need to do that, because the answer I gave him was just go with what inspires you. If you feel like it's a melody you just need to get off right now, or that's just, you know what I'm saying, burning in your brain calling you, do that. If you feel a drum beat is just in your head and you want to start with that, do that. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be different. It's different for me every time. It's not just no one thing. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of magic and it's like a cheat code. Just starting with your drums first. You know, I feel like a lot of our biggest and greatest songs of all time were probably started like that. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to talk too much, man. Y'all go try that out and let me know in the comments how this going for you. You know, 3 times out. Peace.
I've been using Logic Pro 10 and then Logic Pro professionally for about.
That was the video that I was talking about. Just pretty much going over, you know, big producer, big time producer, just his idea of how you start beats with your drums, right? It's just easier, it's more organic. You can build from there like he did. He started with his drums, and then he had his bass line, and then he had different synths and everything, and then the piano. It's just more organic that way. So, it's almost time for class to be over, so let me explain what is the next lecture. The next lecture for next week will pretty much be It would pretty much be us just working on drums. It would you be starting off making your drum patterning, adding your claps and your hi-hats, and just pretty much getting used and comfortable with starting off with your drums. That would be lecture next week. I'll play some videos to show you different drum patterns that you can do eventually, and then you will have hands-on time if you're here in person making your drum pattern. My goal for this class, my goal for this class is for you to be self-sufficient. Because if you want to start your Twitch channel or if you want to start a YouTube channel, whatever, and you don't like the music that's free that you can get, you have the ability to make the beat yourself, right? And keep everything in-house. It's your beat, it's your property, it's your ownership. I just want to be self-sufficient. And also, let's say you do continue to want to go deeper into music production, right? You can do that. I will help you out the best I can with that, point you in the right direction and just show you other tips and tricks that I know of personally. But after this cohort, if you choose to go continue music production, I will give you the tools and all the knowledge that I have in order for you to go forward with your music production. But it is about that time. It's 7:55. It is about that time to get out of here. Do you have any questions?
So, in my opinion, when it comes to the drum beats, do you have to like hit the right notes until you get hit the beat where you need it?
Well, are you saying notes or the right slots? Because with your drums, you don't really change your notes unless you absolutely want to, and even then, um, I wouldn't advise changing the notes unless you're doing something like a slide pattern beat, and that's something that it's pretty much what you would hear in like UK drill music, how everything kind of go up and then back down. But even then, I wouldn't suggest you doing that. I would just keep your drum notes on the same.
I don't have any questions. I'm just at this point interested in doing hands-on because that was cool how Metro just put a beat together.
No questions. The YouTube lecture. Oh, the music production. Uh, Okay.
Okay. All right. Good night. Thank you. Bye bye.
Frames. We are so I wanted to get into transition. Comes in. Uh, you-
What's up? Can you hear me? I can hear you.
all right. Yeah, I'm gonna connect my head. What's up, Ty? Can you hear me?
What's up, Asante? Can you hear me?
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna connect my head.
Uh,
All right.
I got you going on a live stream.
All right. Do we have a participant in class?
Not right now.
And one is a mini series.
They say it's 50-50.
Yeah, you
View of what this class will cover. Okay, perfect. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here today.
So what you hear?
To keep your trademark right. So our program, our back-to-back. So
it is.
Okay. Until you. Yes. All right. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
You're
See you
welcome.
next week.
All right, like Elaine said, we're gonna take a quick we'll take a quick break and then we will get into our next class, which is I believe it is music production. So yeah, we'll take a quick break and I'll cue up the music production course.